The opinions voiced in this program are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investment or investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial advisor, or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities are offered in the U.S. through First Allied Securities, Inc., a registered broker-dealer. Member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through First Allied Advisory Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Opinions expressed by advertisers or third-party vendors are solely their own and are not affiliated with the Keeping Your Money Show or First Allied Securities, Inc. You're listening to the Keeping Your Money Show. And now, the hosts of the Keeping Your Money Show, Jamie Westenbarger, Bart Steinler, and Shannon Simon.
Good morning. Welcome to the Keep Your Money Show. I'm Jamie Westenbarger, joined as always by Bart Steinler. Mr. Steinler, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Jamie. It's another $1 million morning.
Indeed it is. A lot of people probably aren't feeling like $1 million after the way the market performed this week, but
yeah, I can see that. It took kind of a knock in the shorts.
It did. So, in case you were wondering, it's probably a good idea to have a plan when those things happen. So, I won't hammer it home too much, but if you don't have one, you can always give us a call, 888-98-MONEY, or, of course, find us on the web at keepingyourmoney.com. We got a great show on deck today. We're going to talk about Social Security's disability fund is running dry next year. That's great. And Medicare premiums could very well be on the rise. We're going to discuss checking the freshness date of your will. How do you know if you need to update that? 6 reasons to work with a financial advisor in retirement. I'll bet one of those reasons is in case the market goes kapooey. And then, of course, we'll have one more segment with 3 mistakes that will completely derail your retirement. Shane and Simon will be in to discuss that with us today. If you miss any part of the show, you can always find it on our web. Just go to keepingyourmoney.com or go to iTunes and search us there. We podcast through there at The Keeping Your Money Show. You can download that or subscribe to it. We've got a couple of events coming up here just around the corner, Bart.
We do. We're going to take you out to the ballpark on September 4th for the West Michigan Whitecaps versus the Fort Wayne Tin Caps. Still have a few tickets left. Great event. We did it last year. We're going to have a barbecue dinner and fireworks. Gates open at 5:30. Dinners from 6:30 to 8:30. First pitch at 7. And there's fireworks after the game.
Not bad for that. Just give us a call. Let us know you're interested. We'll tell you how you qualify to get those. We do have a couple tickets left, and we would love to have you out. And then coming up like we do every month, the second Tuesday of the month, September 8th, we're going to be at the Gravity Tap House and Grill, which is just a mile from our office. 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. we'll be there. Event is casual, open house style. If it's warm enough, we're going to actually do some of it out on the patio. Complimentary hors d'oeuvres and beverages will be served. We do ask that you RSVP, though, so we know how many people there are to expect. You can give us a call for that, the baseball game, or anything else at 888-98-MONEY, which is 888-986-6639. And just as a reminder, someone does answer our phone 24 hours a day. So even if you're thinking, oh, it's Saturday, I'll probably just wait till Monday to call, feel free to give a call. Somebody will pick up the line and be happy to get your information. So this article on Social Security was a little concerning, I guess, to say the least. It's like the report starts out and it sounds all great. If you don't know, just last week was the annual checkup on Social Security. It found some good things. First one was that the Social Security Retirement Trust Fund has enough money to pay full benefits until 2035, which is actually a year later than previously projected. Medicare's giant trust fund for inpatient care will not be exhausted until 2030, which is the same date as last year's report. So that's great. But then underlying all of that, two really, really interesting and potentially horrible things that we face is that 11 million people who receive Social Security disability could very well face steep benefit cuts next year because the fund that funds that is going to be empty. There will be no money left.
Yeah, and in this article, one of the suggestions that they had for fixing that problem was to take money out of the Social Security Fund and then put it into the Social Security Disability Fund. And that is just a terrible idea.
But you have to think in an election year, that's probably the most likely scenario that we can see because, let's face it, increasing the premiums paid into Social Security or reducing benefits probably not what we're going to see heading into a major election cycle.
Yeah, and we don't like to get political on this show, but it really is going to make a big difference for your retirement. And I want to urge people to talk to their politicians, and this would not be exclusively on one side of the aisle or the other, but talk to all of them. Ask them not to dodge this issue. Ask them if somebody comes out with some reasonable suggestions for helping to alleviate this problem, and coming up with those suggestions means they're going to have to come up with some things that are not popular to do, like raising rates and cutting benefits and making some changes to the system. But if the changes aren't made to the system, the benefits are not going to be there in the future.
Well, yeah, and every time this report comes out, they say over and over and over again, today is the day we should be making adjustments. Today is the day to start fixing this, because it's going to be way worse down the road if we have to do it then.
Yeah, and if each side gets together and is reasonable about coming up with some solutions, and one side doesn't attack the other side for trying to fix a problem that is obviously there, nobody disputes it, then maybe something can get done. But a lot of times the politicians are afraid to come up with a suggestion that will be a solution for fear that the media and the opposing politicians are going to jump all over them. So we need to encourage both sides to be realistic and come up with some good solutions. This thing is a lot scarier than it seems. The other thing is with Medicare Part B. So what Medicare Part B is the part of Medicare that retirees pay for that cover their outpatient doctor visits and things like that. So if you do not get an increase in your Social Security and you're making under a certain number of dollars of money, your Medicare Part B is not going to go up. But if they decide...
But we should point out, too, that Social Security is not expected to get a COLA increase for 2016. So
Right.
That's why that's important. If you fall under a certain income threshold, your Medicare Part B is not going to go up because it can't exceed whatever the COLA increase is. If the COLA increase is 0, therefore your Medicare increase would be 0. But that's
Right.
only 70% of people that are on Medicare. The other 30% make too much money to be under that provision.
Right. And so they need to increase it by a certain number of dollars. And if the people under that income threshold don't get an increase at all, that means the people over that income threshold are going to get a much larger increase. And they're projecting that to be about a 52% increase. That is a huge increase.
In 1 year.
In 1 year.
For 30% of the population that's on Medicare, they're going to see a 52% increase in their Medicare Part B.
Right. Now, I did a little more digging on this and wondering, how are they going to fix this in the future? And there's a Medicare advocacy group that
Easy
came
for
out.
you to say.
Yeah, sometimes it is. They came out with a report, and they were talking about what the administration's plan is going on in the future for this. And their plan is to put a high wage number out there, and they're talking about $85,000 a year, which is a comfortable wage, but it's certainly not the mega rich.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're making $85,000 a year, then they will be the ones bearing the brunt of the increases going forward. Now, that $85,000 a year, the plan is that would go into effect in 2019 and not be adjusted for inflation. So that's where...
So that starts to resemble, the whole idea of falling into the alternative income, trap. And we saw that where it was created in the 80s and then not adjusted for inflation. So people are falling into, alternative income taxation all the time, or the alternative minimum tax is what it's actually called. People fall into that all the time that are not even remotely considered rich because it was never indexed for inflation. So while $85,000 could be a reasonable amount of money to expect in retirement now, 30 years from now, if we're not indexing that for inflation, pretty much everybody would fall under that provision.
So what's the long-term effect of this? If it plays out, the people who have put away money out of their paychecks for Social Security for all these years, they will still get their Social Security, but the effect is that every year their Medicare Part B and then Part D also is going to go up. That's what pays for your prescriptions. is going to eat up what is in Social Security. So if you were planning on having that Social Security for living expenses in retirement, what appears likely is that all of these medical insurance costs are going to eat up a majority of that money.
So it's really coming down to, when you're planning for retirement, unless you plan to be destitute and really the type of person who's not enjoying retirement but simply existing in it, Social Security should almost really not be a part of the planning, because more and more and more of that is going to be going to paying the cost of the health insurance programs, whether for yourself or the people who aren't forced to pay for their own.
Right. So if you're 5 years from retirement, if you're 10 years from retirement, and you're listening to this show and wondering, what do I do? Well, one, you have to get together with an advisor and generate a plan. And two, most likely, of course, we don't know what your specific situation is, but most of the people we talk to, those are the years you got to start putting extra money away in plans that you have control over.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Two things that struck me about this report, too. One was the concept that state budgets are really going to be affected by this, because they pay the Part B premium for low-income beneficiaries who have dual Medicare and Medicaid coverage, so states are going to be shelling out a lot more money. And then I think the thing that screamed to me, this is why we have a problem. Health and Human Services Secretary Sylvia Burwell, after saying that increases could be as high as 52%, wanted everyone to know that they are expected to average less than 5% a year over the long run. Well, I'm not sure how she comes to that math, because that would mean there'd be no increases for the next 10 years just to break even at 5% right there, which I think we can all agree that's not going to happen. So you see the person running the program being completely head in the clouds on this herself. I mean, I don't know what long run qualifies in her book. Maybe over 50 years, it'll only average out to 5. But when you start at 52 the first year, it takes a long time of nothing to get to 5% as the average. So I think it really comes down to...
That comment is just insane. I mean,
it's completely stupid. I mean, I don't even know how you say something like that.
I don't know. It's ridiculous.
But I think it comes down to...
That's the head of Health and Human Services.
That's who's making the decisions.
Yeah.
That's the person in charge. But, it comes right down to the fact is we have to put pressure on our elected officials to fix this program.
Right.
It just has to be fixed. They can't keep kicking the can down the road. We're seeing what's going to happen already right now, and that is that those of us that actually have the foresight, the intelligence, and the discipline to plan for our futures are going to be responsible for paying for everyone else who just never bothered to do it. And it's just not right, So, all right, coming up, we're going to talk about checking the freshness date on your will. How do you know if you need to update it? Right here on the Keeping Your Money Show.